we're standing outside the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office in central London in order to basically be in solidarity with the workers inside of that department who have civil servants who are organising to try and stop British complicity and complicity by the British government in the war crimes that are going on in Gaza by Israel, supported and aided by Britain and the British government.
Workers in the Department of Trade in April stated that they do not want to be involved in selling arms to Israel, and their union is seeking legal advice now on whether they should be doing so. So we're here today as British workers to heed the call of Palestinian trade unionists and show up for Free Palestine and protest against the utilization of British labour in war crimes.
We know historically, whether it's workers in Glasgow at a Rolls-Royce factory that took action against handling parts of planes that were being used for Pinochet's fascist regime, or whether it's Irish workers in department stores in Ireland that were taking action against apartheid South Africa, that workers and the working class have a really important role to play in liberation struggles. This is something that we know from history, and this is something that we've known has been critical in ultimately achieving liberation, and so we're here today to reinforce the internationalist tradition of labour organising.
Workers have power, and workers in Palestine have asked that workers here demonstrate in solidarity with them. And so really under the existing system, the people that can shut down that system are workers. And there's lots of different workers here. There's nurses, there are healthcare workers, there are academic, etc. And the hope is that we expand it. If you look at other countries, whether it's Turkey, whether it's India, port workers, dock workers have refused to move arms. We're hoping that, as we build, we'll be pushing more industrial working class, port workers, dock workers to refuse to move arms to Israel. That's the only way that we can ensure that we strangle the war economy that Israel. Spain's done it, not a radical demand. American West Coast workers have done it. So I think the precedent's there, and British workers hopefully can follow suit.
So in this department, they offer legal advice for the Department of Business and Trade in terms of whether it's legal or illegal to export those weapons to Israel. And with the ICJ ruling, with mounting public pressure and a mounting understanding amongst the public that what Israel is doing amounts to war crimes and is illegal against international law, against moral conscience, and against basic humanity, we are trying to add pressure to that and to basically demand that the British government stops selling weapons to Israel.
My message to David Lammy is, so he requested from the Foreign Office that they release the legal advice they sought on, the arms license to Israel, selling arms license to Israel. And since taking office, he has not released that information. And we know that it's probably overwhelmingly going to say that there's a risk of violating international humanitarian law. And by sitting on this information, he's actually enabling Israeli war crimes. And there's more and more death every day. So we want David Lammy to release this information and respect international law and stop selling arms to Israel.
As Foreign Secretary, Lammy's called for an immediate ceasefire and resumed funding for UNRWA. Do you think this shows Labour is taking the situation in Gaza seriously?
Look, in 2019, when UNRWA was cut by Trump, this government, which is a Tory government, and many Western countries condemned it. Then Biden cut UNRWA funding in 18 countries, followed suit. There was no way that they were going to continue to fund UNRWA. That was low-hanging fruit. We can't expect that UNRWA is a sign that the government is listening. The real test is the ICC judgment and respecting that and international law and the basis of international law and stopping arming Israel. This isn't a radical demand. Thatcher did it. Blair did it. And they're asking that the government do this after, the Lancet came out and said nearly 200,000 people might have been killed is a basic demand. It's not a radical demand. It's been presented as a radical demand. It's a very, very basic demand that has precedent, specifically with Israel.
Well, the Labour government now has a unique chance to show and prove that they are not just Tories in disguise, that they are different, that they stand for something different. Keir Starmer is a human rights lawyer. David Lammy claims to support human rights around the world. So to make good on that promise would be to end weapons exports to Israel, have an arms embargo against Israel. I mean, this is a very minimal demand. It's a very modest demand, So it would be very easy for the Labour government to change this overnight. We know that they'd be able to change this overnight if they wanted to. They would just have to change a very simple practice that they're undertaking in these departments. And so it's achievable, it's feasible, it's a very reasonable demand as well. And so right now, David Lammy, Keir Starmer, they could be a new government that offers something different to what the Tories did. We know that in the general election, vast numbers of people refuse to vote for Labour and support Labour precisely because millions of people across the country want something different. They want an end to British complicity in Israeli war crimes and in the genocide. And that's why we're here, to try and amplify that call.
We always celebrate revolution. We always celebrate resistance in hindsight. We always put plaques up for people, put statues up, celebrate national holidays for Nelson Mandela, the Irish resistance movement, Queen Nanny of the Maroons. All of these people are always celebrated with hindsight. And at the time, they're treated like terrorists and treated like criminals. And are never listened and never heard. And you have to believe them and fight for them at the time as it's happening, and give them any support that we can, especially when we are so deeply complicit.
So we've seen a number of arrests today. This is part of a broader strategy that we've seen increasing over the last couple of months to try and intimidate protesters and try and intimidate people that are taking action and standing on the right side of history. We know that the majority of the British public stands with the Palestinian cause. We know that because since the beginning of this genocide, polling has showed that the majority of the British public supports a ceasefire and supports the Palestinian struggle. And so we're here today putting our bodies on the line and showing that the people are willing to everyday people, everyday workers are willing to sacrifice and take action for Palestine.
Unfortunately, we know that Keir Starmer has a long track record of cracking down on protests, and that this government is really trying to go for this law and order kind of authoritarian approach. I think it's worrying to see this today because it might be a sign of what's to come. And what Keir Starmer could also do today is to basically stop the police crime and sentencing bill, which is a punitive draconian law that unfairly victimizes and targets peaceful protesters for using their democratic right to protest and free speech. And so, the government has so many options now to try and be a government of human rights, a government of hope and of justice around the world. And so we'll wait and see if they do that. And if not, we'll be here in the streets all the time.